Now, please welcome to the stage Secretary Pete Buttigieg.
Good morning. Good morning, Illinois Democrats. How are we doing today? This is a fired up group. I love this. And I love being back in Chicago. Chicago's looking good today. It's bringing back a lot of memories for me. This is the first city I got to know when my father would occasionally take us up the toll road from South Bend, Indiana, to see what a big city looked like. And years later, this is where I got my first steady job and my first apartment that was above ground, which is pretty exciting. And then years after that, when I was mayor of South Bend, I started to fall for this cute DePaul graduate student, and would make a point of seeing him when I was drilling in the Navy Reserve unit up in Fort Sheridan, Great Lakes. And then I married him. Justin's right here. I actually proposed to him at gate B5 at O'Hare, so don't let anybody tell you that O'Hare is not romantic. It feels good to be in Chicago, and it feels good to be with a winning Democratic Party right now. Don't get me wrong. I saw our next president the other night, and she reminded me that we have to maintain the mentality of an underdog every step of the way. But the momentum is undeniable. The momentum is incredible. And I've been thinking about where that momentum is coming from. And there's so many parts to it, but one that maybe we don't talk about enough, is the simple fact that the American people agree with us on the issues that matter most in their lives. We got to remember that. For some reason, Democrats have this habit of sometimes feeling like our views must be unpopular. The reverse is true. Americans agree with us that it is the wealthy who are not paying their fair share and the middle class that needs a break, not the other way around. Americans agree with us that in a free country, you are free to join a union and get a good day's wage and benefits for a good day's work. Americans agree with us that the best way to keep our children safe is not to censor Toni Morrison paperbacks and keep them out of the school library. It's to make sure that gun violence does not come to the steps of our schools or our homes or our neighborhoods. And yes, most Americans, the vast majority of Americans, agree with us that in a free country, you can be who you are, love who you love, and a woman's health care decisions are up to her and not some politician. I actually think even now we are underreacting to how significant Project 2025 is. The scandal of Project 2025. And that's the most interesting thing about it to me, that it's a policy scandal. Think about that. The biggest scandal facing the Republican Party right now, the one that they're actually afraid of, the thing that has them cowering and distancing themselves and making up excuses and doing damage control. It's not some criminal cover-up, although they've got one of those going on too. It's not some sex scandal, although it's the simple fact that somebody actually wrote down all of their policies and plans, and it turns out their policies and plans are wildly unpopular, and the American people would rather go the direction we want to lead them when it comes to issues. Now, I'm a policy guy. A lot of people say elections aren't about policies. All right, well, if it's not about policy, maybe it's about results. Let's talk about results. Especially because I keep hearing a lot about crime. President Trump went to Michigan yesterday, gave a speech on crime. As if we're going to forget that he's a convicted criminal running against a prosecutor. And just as importantly, as if we're going to forget that crime was higher on his watch. Why would we want to go back to that? You know, if you think about it in terms of results, even for those folks, look, I think the definition of a good economy is the ability of working people to get by. But for our more conservative friends who think of the definition of the economy more as the the Dow Jones and the S&P. Fine, let's do that. Guess what? Stock market is doing better now than it was under Donald Trump. Why would we want to go back to that? Let alone the manufacturing recession that we experienced under Donald Trump. Why would we want to go back? And most of all, why would we want to go back to the chaos that we experienced under Donald Trump? So if it's not about policies, if it's not about results, then let's just talk about what it felt like to be an American then. And let's talk about what it feels like to be in that convention hall right now. Which would you rather be part of? Would you rather be part of the politics of darkness and grievance and anger? That was getting old the first time. And as the great Chicagoan President Obama reminded us last night, the sequel is usually worse. I mean, they changed up the cast a little bit, but I'm not sure that's an improvement. At least Mike Pence was kind of polite. J.D. Vance represents doubling down on the negativity. I mean, a guy who, childless cat, I'm a dog guy with 2 kids, and I'm offended by that. That's just not a way to reach out to the American people. We can do so much better, and we are doing so much better, not only with our extraordinary next President of the United States, but with our next Vice President of the United States, a Midwesterner, Tim Walz. I have seen campaigns spend millions of dollars trying to make their candidate seem like the kind of guy who would be a National Guardsman, a school teacher, and a football coach. He literally is that guy. And even more importantly, what all those jobs have in common is that they're not about you. The measure of a great teacher is the success of your students. The measure of a great coach is the performance of your team. The measure of a great sergeant is the readiness of your soldiers. You come to work every day thinking about other people, as it should be with public service. But the other side doesn't understand that, which is why they literally can't figure out what to do with the Harris-Walz ticket. We have the right policies. We have the right results. We have the right people. We have the right values. And we have a lot of reasons to want to win. Again, I'm thinking about all of the different things that have changed since I first got to know you, since I was a kid coming to Chicago, since I even first got into public life. I'm thinking about the things that changed since I first got to meet many of you when I got my big break, when Dick Durbin called, and he must have really been panicking to get all the way down the list to the mayor of South Bend because they needed a new speaker for that convening in Springfield. Maybe some of you were there. Probably the biggest thing that's changed for me since those days was 3 years ago when Chasten and I got this phone call that changed our lives, because right after that phone call, I jumped on a plane, he got in the car, and the next day we were holding in our arms our newborns, our son and daughter, now 3-year-olds, Gus and Penelope. They have changed our lives. Can't wait to introduce them to Chicago, by the way. They weren't quite ready this time. They're incredible. Every parent knows it. It changes everything. Our day begins at first light. I don't mean sunrise. I mean first, like astronomical twilight, first light. With our son running into the room with a bear under one arm and a book under the other, asking us to read to him. And if we don't do it, he will reappear 1 minute later with a tambourine in his hand and make sure we get the message. But we will have already gotten up once before, because at 2 or 3 in the morning, our daughter, Penelope, will come running into the room. Mercifully, she comes into our bed and goes right back to sleep. But sometimes before she does, she reports why it is that she left her bedroom to come into ours. And sometimes it's because she had a nightmare. Now, she doesn't have the word nightmare in her vocabulary yet. But when a toddler says, "The dinosaur get me," like you know what that means. And we'll put our arm around her and say, "You are safe. Dinosaur's not going to get you. You are completely safe, and we won't let any dinosaur come and get you tonight." And then she'll go back to sleep, and we'll drift back off to sleep. And as I'm drifting back off to sleep, I'll reflect a little bit on how it's kind of nice as a father, as a parent with so many anxieties about your children, It's nice to be able to make a promise that you're 100% sure you're going to be able to keep without even having to lift a finger and make any effort. No dinosaur will get you on my watch. I'm 100% sure of it. But when I think about the reason that you all do the hard work of organizing and campaigning, the thing that we're here at the Democratic National Convention to do, the door knocking, the party building, yes, the voting, the volunteering, the hard conversations, all of that, those early mornings and those late nights, why do we do all of that? It's because there are some promises that aren't going to be so easy to keep unless we work for them. I don't have to lift a finger to keep our bedroom dinosaur-free, but if I want to make sure that our son and daughter grow up into a climate that is as ready to sustain their prosperity as it was mine when I was a child, I'm going to have to work for that. If we want to make sure that our children inherit a democracy that is not just intact, but more democratic than the one we grew up with, we're going to have to work for that. We need to make sure that our children know more rights and freedoms, not less than what was handed to us. And if we want that to happen, we're going to have to work for it every single day. I know you're working for that. I know we can count on you to work for that. Are you ready to secure those rights and freedoms for the next generation? For your children, for my children, for everybody we care about. That's why I'm a Democrat. That's why we are here, and that's why I'm proud to join you for this Democratic National Convention. Let's fight hard, let's win, and let's give ourselves a lot to celebrate come November. Thank you so much for the chance to be here. Thank you.